Our panel today, we're going to talk a little bit about, and I'm just going to hit the description a little bit, direct-to-consumer personalized medicine, and including genomics tests, metabolic screenings, and even health risk profile, and how they're gaining really popularity and giving consumers access to this data and being able to use it in an everyday, all the time thing. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the recent fraud case with Medicare, Medicaid with regard to genomics testing around cancer screening. Anybody? Okay, so Medicare, Medicaid just brought forth a fraud case. It's a $2.1 billion fraud case centered around 8 doctors, a number of telehealth providers about the fraudulent use of these kind of tests, which I think is somewhat of a negative connotation to the long-term value of how all this works and why we need some of the approaches that blockchain can provide to deal with this new class of emerging fraud, as well as the positive aspect of it. So I'm going to ask my 2 other panel members here to just basically do a quick introduction of themselves, tell us a little bit about your company, what it's focused on, and then we'll kind of take it from there.
So my name is Grishin. I am the Chief Scientific Officer at Nebula Genomics, a privacy-focused personal genomics company. So we are trying to address the issues that are deterring today many people from purchasing direct-to-consumer genetic tests. And privacy has become a really major obstacle over the past few years due to the general trend that concerns all tech companies of how they deal with users' personal data. And in particular in the direct-to-consumer genetic industry, there have been a lot of concerns about privacy, and which makes sense if you think your DNA is like the most personal information that you have about yourself. So we saw the need for a privacy-focused business, and that's when we launched Nebula Genomics. So we use blockchain combined with a number of other privacy-preserving technologies to enable our customers to stay in control over the data and be able to share it with only when they want to share it. And if they do decide to share it, make sure that the risk of the data being misused is reduced as much as possible.
So my name is Capocasale, CEO and founder of a niche contract research organization called FlowMetric. My background, I was a research scientist at J&J for over 15 years before I founded FlowMetric. And we are in the business of developing biomarker assays for use in advancing drug development initiatives with our clients. We, in 2014, launched a company, FlowMetric Diagnostics, and the brand that is just launching this year called Insight Health, which is basically leveraging biomarkers to provide health and wellness information to consumers. And that process, that platform, will be on a blockchain initiative. So we believe strongly in developing an immutable record of data that can be tracked over time and kept in a secure fashion for stakeholders. So, and those stakeholders for us, traditionally and in the past, have been pharmaceutical companies, biotech companies. It will be in the very near future consumers.
Okay, thanks. And just a quick overview for those of you who don't know BurstIQ. I'm the founder CEO of BurstIQ, and what we do at BurstIQ, we're a blockchain enterprise enablement platform. We focus on creating immutable health identity and profiles for people, places, and things, and really kind of enable the interactions between them. Kind of core is a big data engine and a granular consent engine. We've been in production for a year and a half, have a lot of major clients on the platform, ranging from health delivery organizations to CRO space, and a really solid development community building direct-to-consumer applications on the platform. So that's us. So I kind of set the stage. Now, I want to stay focused on on some of these personalized medicine tests. So Dennis, let me start with you. I know you mentioned privacy is pretty important. So from a top level perspective, tell us why your company is different than, say, kind of what most people have heard about, like 23andMe or Ancestry, and how the kinds of things you're providing differentiate yourself from them, not only from the privacy perspective, but also some of the product differentiations.
Right, yeah, so there are several major differences. One first point that I already touched on is privacy. So where we are similar is in that we also want to kind of enable research and make the data available to research as easily accessible as possible, but we want to do that without actually taking ownership of our customers' data and just selling it ourselves. Instead, we see ourselves as a company that connects our users with researchers and creates a system that incentivizes data sharing, incentivizes researchers to access the data, creates several advantages to both parties who participate in that transaction. And to enable that, we employ blockchain and a bunch of other technologies that just enable this kind of fair transfer and data sharing as possible. So that's one aspect. The other aspect we differentiate ourselves is the genetic testing technology that we use. Most direct-to-consumer genetic testing companies that exist today, they use microarray-based genotyping, which is essentially a technology that reads less than 0.1% of the whole human genome. So it's like very tiny part of it. So we instead use next-generation DNA sequencing and offer various products, some of them as affordable as the genotyping tests offered by 23andMe, but at the same price, they generate almost 2,000 times more data. So we think that this is the way to go, as it generates more data that is both more useful for our customers, for the consumers, as well as for researchers. And the third important aspect is what kind of reporting we then provide based on that data. When you think about 23andMe tests, it's usually mostly about ancestry and kind of receiving one-time results, and then you're kind of done. You just buy the test, get your results, and then that's it. So we launched a product a few months ago that is called Nebula Explore. And this is kind of a new approach as we see it to genetic testing. So what we are enabling our users is to stay at the cutting edge of scientific advancements and learn how they might be affecting them personally. So the way you can think about it is that, let's say, this week on Monday, there was a new paper published that found new associations between certain genetic variants and a trait or a disease. And then within the next few days, we'll have that research study on our platform kind of taken out of this paywall, explain to our users what those results mean, all those variants discovered show to them, and we tell them whether they have them in their genome or not. And we also calculate polygenic scores if there are like many variants that have been discovered. So it really enables our users to receive every week updates on what happened just days ago in science, what new insight has been gained, and how it might be personally important to them.
Okay, so when you do a little more of a high fidelity sequence, it produces a lot of data. So how are you using blockchain in the service delivery? Are you putting my sequence data on a chain, or is it the consent and the payment monetization side?
Yes, so there are multiple things. Multiple areas in which we use blockchain. And we use, so to say, make use of different properties of cryptocurrencies and blockchain. So the first one is that it provides a certain degree of anonymity. And this is a property that actually in the past has given cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum somewhat of a questionable reputation, as some people claim they're being used for black market transactions and to buy illegal things and so on. But we believe that there are actually a certain entirely legitimate services for which it really makes sense to just purchase them anonymously without really telling the service provider who you are. And we think that genetic testing is such a service that many people would like to purchase without revealing as little as possible about themselves. So one service that we offer and that uses this property of cryptocurrencies is anonymous genetic testing, where our customers can purchase genetic testing from us without sharing, the name, the credit card number, the address with us. So really as little data as possible. So that's one property, is pseudo-anonymity of cryptocurrencies. The second one is the immutability and transparency that blockchain provides, and that's related then to the data sharing aspect. So our customers can essentially write the data sharing consent to the blockchain, where it's stored immutably. When researchers want to access the data, the identity of those researchers and also the data requests are the same, immutably written to the blockchain. Then the blockchain is read by a number of key holders on the platform that then collectively decrypt the data if proper consent was given and make it available to researchers. So that's the property of immutability, transparency that blockchain provides here, and just helps us create trust and give our users control over the data. And the third property is, well, what I haven't mentioned so far, another thing, in addition to addressing the privacy concerns that we're trying to accomplish, is to bring the costs down of genetic testing. We ideally want to make them zero to consumers. And we want to do that by shifting the costs away from consumers towards researchers who would essentially sponsor their sequencing. And there we see the potential to use smart contracts to essentially connect those people who would like to get sequenced but haven't been yet, researchers who want to sequence them, and laboratories who have the sequencers and machines and can process their samples. So we see there's a possibility to use smart contracts, have researchers essentially make a offering to do sponsored sequencing in form of a smart contract, then individuals executing that smart contract in this way, kind of agreeing to the sponsored sequencing, and then a payment being released from that smart contract and goes to the labs that will do the sequencing. So that's the third property that enables creation of such a sponsored sequencing or data marketplaces for genetic testing.
Okay, I'm gonna slide over to Ren. Thanks a lot. I kind of like the whole notion that if I'm the missing link in some great discovery, I should be compensated for it, because a lot of people say I'm a missing link as it is. So Ren, a couple things, right? We've talked quite a bit about the genome side of life, and I know you're a little more downstream of that. So I'd like to really set the stage of some of the new emerging tests and how they may apply in the broader health perspective, particularly phenome type tests and some of the areas you focus, which are on cellular biomarkers. And can you just give us just a 2-second overview of that, and then I have a few follow-up questions on how these things apply and in the broader scheme of things for me.
Sure. 2 seconds or 2 minutes?
2 minutes, 3 minutes.
So we are downstream in terms of genomics. First of all, I think you have to say that we're in a time where genomics really is kind of the most critical data I think that any of us really own, if you will. But along with your DNA, okay, there's also all the variations that come post-genetically, okay, and that's at the cellular level. And so our company, Insight Health, and we didn't have slides today, but Insight spelled INCITE, because we really believe that we're going to be kind of stimulating a bit of a rebellion, and in that sense to incite a new way of thinking of your own biological information. So for us, that information, first of all, we inherently believe it is owned by the individual and whose data it is, whose cellular or genetic information is theirs. How we harness that information, okay, so right now what we're looking to do is make that information available to stakeholders. So number one stakeholder for cellular information, the variations that occur on cells, okay, based on either a condition or based on a treatment that you're undergoing, or based on just your sense of wellness, how healthy you believe you are, we think is valuable information. And so one way we think we're going to distinguish ourselves from the companies like 23andMe and Ancestry DNA is that we inherently believe that that stakeholder, that person whose data it is, should be able to participate in kind of the value proposition. So there's an altruistic component, but there can also be a monetary component. That data is valuable to pharmaceutical companies, to biotech companies. And so we're looking to create a system where cellular data will be put on a blockchain that will benefit kind of the obvious stakeholders, the individual and their physicians, but then also be made available to interested parties, interested third parties. Blockchain allows that data to be tracked, in essence, right? So, you know, unlike signing a waiver where you give your information accessibility to third parties, typically where you're not getting kind of a value from that. For us, that tracking of data, that immutable kind of longitudinal record of your data will be tokenized. So there will be, we believe, an ecosystem that's created where various stakeholders can incentivize the perusal of that data. And so for us, our number one priority will be that individual stakeholder, the person who's giving a blood sample to get this information, their physician that's tied to it, and then ultimately that person who's given that sample will decide where else they want to participate.
Thanks. So I'm going to put it in a non-geneticist kind of view of life, or scientist, the way you guys are. So the way I look at it is, Dennis is going to tell me how I'm built, kind of what my body genomically has a propensity for. You know, I may be predisposed to certain kind of cancer or some other method. The proteomics guys are going to tell me, well, you know, what's happening with my body proteins, in other words, the output of my DNA. And then you're going to tell me kind of specific manifestations based on a condition that's starting to show up. So I kind of see this spectrum of data, which is a lot and longitudinal. I may not be able to need to do high fidelity sequencing all the time, but it has been proven that, like in space, even twins, some of their
telomere length.
There's been, yeah, right. Some of this has been various. So I see that longitudinal nature of kind of a basis for decision process, particularly for myself and my care providers.
Yeah.
And I like the theme that you all have, that there's got to be an individual component to it, particularly on the monetization side and value based. All right, so I have a couple more questions to throw out here. When does this stuff become mainstream for normal care providers? Besides, hey, I'd like to know where I came from an ancestry perspective. How do you see it being adopted by kind of the baseline health community? I'll start with you, Dennis.
Yeah. So
we kind of got 3 minutes, so
yeah. So
lightning round now.
Yes. So what we have right now already available is a direct-to-consumer product. So you can just go to our website and purchase it and receive all those things that I mentioned: the reporting, the testing itself, and in the back end, the privacy-preserving technologies backing it. So it's right now a direct-to-consumer product, but we're also building right now or preparing to launch a more clinically focused product that will be then more integrated with healthcare providers and will be more diagnostic in its nature.
Yeah.
So for us, we've got a hybrid model where we are B2B to C right now. So it will be us to physicians who will then offer our kits to their patients, at least with the initial kind of meeting. We anticipate within a year it'd be direct to consumer at that point. So. Okay,
I'm going to throw a couple other things out here real quick. So part of this is chain of custody, including starting with the sample. And I know because if it's going to transition besides a personal health product or a consumer-generated health product, I have to validate, where things came from, including lab results to cross over. And I understand blockchain is a good place to put the immutability of the data once it comes out of your respective labs and how you distribute it. And in your case, Ren, to your pharma customers
Yeah.
and others. And your case, Dennis, to me, is a consumer, and potentially other service providers want to read my genome. But take it back one more step. So I'll kick it over to you, since you're doing a little more on the CRO space. How do you see kind of the specimen draws and that chain of custody maybe evolving over time? You see some new emerging techs there?
So every day we handle samples, blood samples that come from clinical sites. And typically we work in an ecosystem where we're not the only contract research organization even handling these samples. So we're in the state of Pennsylvania. We've just developed an initiative called the Pennsylvania Life Science Block, PALS Block Initiative, that Frank's actually a part of also, where we've recognized that for clinical trials, it's absolutely critical that the types of points in recognizing where samples come from, the quality of those samples has to be of utmost importance towards the integrity of the science that gets applied through those samples. So often as a CRO, we see poor quality samples that come to us from another site that we kind of have to throw our hands up to. And I think the issue that gets lost in the shuffle with clinical trials is who's the responsibility lie with when data is not great. That is such a gray area. And I truly believe, we believe that, and one of the reasons why we kind of felt the need to look for something was that our data, prior to kind of implementing a blockchain solution, was getting lost in the shuffle at times. So you couldn't really see where our data was going to. And so what we've now we haven't implemented it yet, but we've got stakeholders, meaning our clients, pharma companies, kind of interested in this proposition of saying, hey, we can trace every bit of the data that we are handling to individuals. We can timestamp it. There's a longitudinal record of everything that's been done. And you would be surprised how that seems like it should be a very basic component of clinical trial data analysis, data acquisition, that actually is not as clear cut as it should be. Yeah. And so ultimately it's to give you the best clinical research possible in getting drugs approved.
Yeah, I think it's a different variation of supply chain, which is really kind of custody, right? And I like some of the new technologies where I don't have to be stuck with a big old needle all the time. The little micro draws are pretty cool. Okay, Dennis, I'm going to kick it over. We just have a few seconds. So, how are you going to bridge the last mile into the doc side of life, the healthcare side of life from consumer? Are you going to have them be the collection mechanism for you, or are you going to change the method in which some of this, or are you just going to change the data access protocols?
Yeah, so I think we will remain heavily direct-to-consumer focused, but we'll get physicians and genetic counselors stronger, more involved in this whole process as we start delivering results to our customers that just might, concern them if they were just learned them without any counseling or assistance. So yeah, this is something we're planning on rolling out as we are preparing to launch our more diagnostically focused tests. But at its core, we will still see ourselves as pretty much a direct-to-consumer company where individuals will just collect the samples themselves from their homes, submit it to our labs, and then have the tests be done.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up. So all this stuff is awesome, but put it in perspective. It's an extension of your identity. It's part of your health profile, and we're going to see this mainstream in our lifetime, in my opinion. And I think one of the things that kind of will usher in this liquidity of data and really bring these type of tests into the mainstream are going to be from the consumer side of life and from the CRO side of life or clinical research organization side of life, more so than traditional healthcare delivery, simply because I think these aspects of the market are very ready to receive it and understand it. So I want to thank our two panel members here. Please give them a hand. These guys are doing some great innovative work.
The 2019 Converge2Accelerate conference is brought to you by IEEE, the world's largest technical professional organization for the advancement of technology. Boehringer Ingelheim, passionately working to improve healthcare. NASCO, advancing digital health together. IPSI US, the Association of Independent Workers, for one, for all. Partners in Digital Health, publishers of the forward-reaching blockchain in Healthcare Today and Telehealth and Medicine Today. Special consideration to iWorker Innovations, taking the independent workforce to new heights. Connected Health Conference, designing for healthy habits and better outcomes. Haven Health Solutions, providing true blockchain transactional interoperability. Special thanks to Seaport World Trade Center for hosting us. We'll be right back after these messages. Don't go away.